we are up and running. All right, so hey guys, welcome to another Saturday live stream. So this is where we just kind of have a chat about all the stuff going on in the tech world and just chat regularly, one-on-one, and just have a good time with it. Personally, this has been a really big week for me. And yeah, so the little man decided to show up about a week early. Today was his due date, and he figured, hey, I'm going to show up the previous week, which was good because not a whole lot happened. And we're gearing up towards some pretty big stuff. Zen 3 coming out here in a few days, so he gave me a little bit of time here to get ready and prepared for, you know, basically being a dad. He's our first kid, so I've never done this before. And of course, he decided last night to stay up from midnight till 3 a.m. and eating like every 20 minutes. So I am pretty exhausted right now, but I do want to thank all of you guys for joining me here today. Things are about to get crazy. October is going to be nuts. So hello everybody, and thank you. All of you guys were great with the little dude showing up. All your support was really welcome. He's a cute little booger. And yeah, you guys are right. He looks very much like me when I was a kid. When I was a newborn, like if you take our pictures side by side, it's pretty ridiculous. So yeah, I'm thinking for Halloween, I'm going to get him a little beard. And yeah, I'll take some pictures for you guys and I'll show you on that one. All right, so yeah, the Harry Patch Boy, I'm guessing you had a similar experience with your kid. It's like, yeah, he showed up a little bit early, and yeah, it's been great, though. He's been awesome, so super excited about that. Then, of course, we have all of the big tech news. Like I said, Zen 3 is about to launch here in just a couple days. Just in case if you guys didn't know, we'll be live streaming that. Celso from Cortex will be joining me on that one, as well as the RDNA 2 launch event. We had a great time last time, so I'm like, yeah, if you want to come on, he's more than welcome to join me. This way you get more opinions than just my own. Alrighty, so let's see what's been going on with you guys here. Wait for 3DFX cards. I like that. I really wish that NVIDIA would do something like that. Do like a 3DFX line. Maybe just some modern technology with like old drivers so you can still use them on like Windows 98. I think that'd be really cool. I mean, they spent all this money to buy 3DFX, and they haven't really done a whole lot with it other than SLI. So I think that's kind of a waste there. I would really appreciate just like a cheap budget 3DFX line. Like I said, with some old drivers, you can use them on like Windows XP retro machines. I think that's a market that a lot of these companies are missing out on, is the whole retro gaming scene. And they don't have to release a lot of products, maybe like one a year or one every couple of years, and they don't even really have to update drivers. It's not like Windows XP or Windows 98's changing, so I think that'd be pretty cool. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. All right, just going back to GTA 5, we'll continue. Oh, okay. All righty. I miss my Voodoo. Yeah, Voodoo cards were really cool. It's just such a weird time. If you weren't around back in the 90s, you really won't get it. But like when 3D gaming on PC started, it was a shit show. Let's just be honest. Like your card may or may not work on a game, even if it was supported. So you really didn't have a clue. But if you had a 3DFX card, it worked every time because everybody built their games basically around the 3DFX card. So it's one of those things where it really wasn't good. Like, I'd probably be making videos saying how bad this is because there's no competition, because everybody's basically just building their cards for 3DFX. But back then, the market wasn't like it is here today. There were tons of competitors. It was just a much better time than where things are at now. Now we only have two, but as the thumbnail seems to suggest, I think AMD might actually surprise us all. And I was reading a lot of the comments before I got on here, and you guys seem pretty interested to see what's going on. All right, so, hey, good old gamer, what do you think about Jim's presentation on Ampere? I actually liked it. My only real gripe is the way that he's determining value is power draw, price, and performance, all of which are fair. The biggest problem is looking at the RTX 3090. Now, yes, it is the fastest card that NVIDIA has, but it's only 10% faster than the 3080. So it's not much faster, but it costs more than twice as much, and it draws more than 10% more power, somewhere around there. So you're not really getting good scaling there, and obviously definitely not on price. Now, had he done that same equation, like I said, with like the 3090, it wouldn't look anywhere near as bad. The way that I look at it, for me, power draw is a real thing and a real concern for a lot of people, but it's also not for a lot of people. So it's kind of one of those metrics that matter to some, but not to all. So price to performance is really the only thing that I personally care about. And looking at the 3080, it's 30% faster than the 2080 Ti, so the previous flagship. It's $699. In my world, that's fair. That's what we got from the 1080, and that's basically what we were expecting to happen, or hoping anyway, because they could have just pulled another Turing and had a 30% faster card and charged $1,500 for it, just like they did last time. Hey, it's faster. Now you got to pay more money. That would have been infinitely worse, and honestly, if they wanted to, do you really think people wouldn't spend $1,500 on a 3080? There are a lot of crazy people out there with way too much money. I'm not one of them. I am definitely not one of those people. So if you want to help support the channel, you can become a patron over on Patreon, and then we can chat about these things on Discord. Shameless plug, but it just segued right in. All right, let's see what we got here. If 3090 was $999, it'd be fair. I would agree with that. The extra RAM definitely would make it worth a good bit more than the 3080. $999, I think, would be all right. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. 3090 is a 3080 Ti. I mean, yeah, it's a 3080 Ti. That's all it is. They just changed the name. So I guess they did that basically just so they can crank up the price. Even though the 2080 Ti was already $1,200, so it's not even really that big of a jump. So I don't know why they didn't just call it a 3080 Ti, because then they could develop another chip, perhaps on TSMC 7 nanometer if AMD is hyper competitive, and then launch that as a 3090 as a tier above that. Now, of course, they could do that and just call it a 3090 Ti, but I don't know. Somebody in their company said that this is the way to go, so that's the way they decided to do things. AMD is let them go first. Don't think they're in a hurry. Hopefully they got their drivers down. Yes, I think that that's going to be the big key here, especially with NVIDIA screwing up drivers this time. Big surprise. It's like nobody thought NVIDIA ever had bad drivers. NVIDIA's had bad drivers. AMD's had bad drivers. ATI's had bad drivers. 3DFX, not so much. They were pretty good. But basically all the companies out there, they have bad drivers from time to time. NVIDIA did have them at launch, which is the worst. Let's be honest. If it happens 2 months after a launch or something, you could have a bad revision. People can then, roll drivers back. It's not that big of a deal. When it's the first one and the only one, yeah, that's a little bit worse. So, yeah, to me, AMD nailing the drivers is going to give them a much smoother experience than what we saw with NVIDIA. So for them, that's probably a big reason why they decided to wait, make sure that they have all their I's dotted and T's crossed. But we've believed that in the past, and that hasn't come to fruition. So it's one of those, anything can happen, but hopefully they got their act together. 3090 level performance at around 1,000 would be amazing. I guess. I mean, see, this is the problem. Until AMD launches their cards, it's all in a vacuum, because we're only comparing Ampere to Turing, which is, it's way better. Let's be honest. Turing was crap. Jim pointed that one out in his video. It's the worst generational upgrade ever. Now, granted, I've pointed out, Paul from Not an Apple Fan, Tom from Moore's Law is Dead. We've been pointing this out since day one. We're like, generation was terrible, and it was. So we're basically comparing this to the worst generation ever. And yeah, it's good compared to that, and that's fine. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with Ampere, and I'm pretty happy with its prices, besides the 3090, which is just a waste of money. But the 3080 and the 3070 to me are reasonably fair. But yeah, if they lowered the price to $1,000, I'd say that's fair in the vacuum. But once AMD comes out, and let's say they're 5% faster than the 3080, or the 3090 rather, or even the 3080, doesn't matter. So super close to the 3090, and let's say their card's $799, then even $999 for the 3090 is no longer good. So it's really all relative there. 3DFX had bad drivers, especially with 2D, 3D cards like the Voodoo Banshee. Yeah, the Voodoo Banshee wasn't good, but I don't know anybody who really bought any of those, honestly. It was Voodoo 1, Voodoo 2, Voodoo 3, and then nobody bought Voodoo 4 or 5, and that's why they went out of business. I bought a Voodoo 5, and it was really, really good in Unreal games, the Unreal Engine games, but by that time, NVIDIA and ATI and all those guys, they'd been out long enough that Direct 3D became basically the new standard, and it just couldn't keep up. And yeah, so I basically spent, I think it was $300 on the Voodoo 5. Should have held on to it, man. I think that thing's worth like $700 or $800 now. I guess that basically just scales with inflation, but still, it didn't really lose any value. And it'd be nice to sell something that I bought for $300 for $700, even if I'm not actually making money. I just think that'd be kind of nice. All right, my build is all AMD and would love to have AMD graphics card in here. Linux drivers have to be good for me to use. Okay, I mean, usually the community does the AMD drivers on Linux, so even if they're not good, they'll eventually get there. The community is pretty good about doing that, so. But you should wait. Obviously, do not buy any card at launch. It usually takes about 3 or 4 months after a new card launch for Linux drivers to really get up to date and usable, so. For you, no FOMO, man. You get to wait until things start getting discounted, so you get to save some money, so that's always good. 3070 is also still too expensive for me. Well, I mean, that's why there are going to be cheaper cards. You have to remember, the 1070 came out 4 years ago in 2016, and it was $449. It was not $399 or whatever you might think it is. It came out at $449. It was $450. So fast forward 4 years later, $450 then and $500 now is basically even money. So it's not like it actually costs any more than it did way back when. So these prices are going up, of course, but you have to understand money, your value of your money is also going down. I just went to the store the other day and milk's $4 a gallon. Okay, it was $2 a gallon a couple years ago. See what I'm saying? So prices are going to continue to go up, but they're not actually costing more. That's one thing that people don't understand. Just because you're spending more money doesn't mean you're actually spending more money if your money is being devalued. I did a whole video on this. If you guys didn't see it, go check it out because that's a really long conversation. All right, let's see here. We got, doesn't matter what card you go for if you have AMD system, and put 3070 in it will go work better. Go for AMD then. Doesn't matter at all. I'm not really sure what you're trying to say there. You can use an NVIDIA card on an AMD system. It works just fine. In fact, PCIe 4 is only available on AMD systems. So yeah, technically Ampere is going to work really, really well on an AMD system moving forward. So not that PCIe 4 is really necessary, but if in those rare circumstances that it does become an issue, you'll have the extra bandwidth, which is good. Milk is $1.50 a gallon in my area. Well, see, there you go. Gas also changes all the time. It's great when the card's out because you get a bunch of still good cards on the market. For me, I will wait because I want stability. Yeah, that's definitely the way to go. All right, Stephen Hart, thank you for the 5 spot. It really helps out. Okay, let's see. It doesn't look like AMD wants to win. I would disagree with that. We'll go over, according to the leaks, they just want to compete, what I gather from watching Moore's Law's video. I hope I'm wrong. I would disagree. I think AMD bringing out that render of the, triple fan, AIB looking GPU lets us know, that's them saying to us that they are taking things seriously. First off, it's triple fan. Second off, it actually looks good. It looks like a third party, like an Asus or a Gigabyte card. So it looks like they're definitely taking that more seriously. And that's the whole takeaway I got from them releasing that. And from what I'm hearing on the back end, there's likely going to be a big chip. How big it's going to be, nobody knows. But I suspect we're going to be seeing somewhere around the 3080, 3090 level at the least. Now, the whole generation, I actually believed if AMD built an 80 CU unit, we would see, nearly double the performance of a 5700 XT through architectural advancements and higher clock speeds, as well as a massive increase to the CUDA cores. So you have higher clocks, IPC, and a doubling of the CUDA cores. You can get double the scaling. If that happens, you're looking at about 50% faster than a 2080 Ti. Now we know that the 3090 is only about 40 to 45% faster than a 2080 Ti. So if AMD can do that, not saying that they will, I'm just saying if they do, and there's a lot of indications that they are, then we're going to see really, really good competition there. Now, for me, the most interesting thing is going to be is like, what memory subsystem are they going to use? Because everybody's telling me no HBM, not on consumer cards. So if they can compete with a 384-bit card against NVIDIA's 384-bit card, this will be the first time in a really long time that AMD's memory compression and memory technology is actually on par with NVIDIA's. And that's huge because that means another advantage that NVIDIA's had over the past, 10 or so years is wiped out. And last generation, they wiped out their performance per watt. Obviously, that's due to the fact that NVIDIA was using, 12 nanometer and AMD was on 7 nanometer. But still, AMD was able to wipe that out with RDNA 1. And if they're able to wipe out, like I said, their memory advantage, their memory compression advantage, that's going to be huge because then AMD can build cheaper cards with GDDR instead of HBM that can compete. And this is going to change up the landscape because they could always throw HBM on one of these things, which they're going to do in the professional market. So they could just sell the professional versions to us, the slightly defective ones. That saves a lot of power, and then they can push clocks even higher and actually push past wherever they're going to be. So there's a lot of really good options here. So I'm really interested to see what they do myself. Hoping HBM2 for gamers. I don't think so. Not at first. Maybe next year during a refresh. That might make a lot of sense for them once they get a lot of the Radeon Instinct cards are defective and they kind of have a stockpile of them. Then at that point, it would make a lot of sense for them to bring them to, regular consumers because it's better than throwing them out. And that's usually how those cards work. It's, well, these don't quite cut it. We can throw them in the garbage or we can sell them to gamers. That's really how these, high-end cards with these HBMs usually end up coming to us. The only cards that didn't were the Fury and Vega. AMD did build those, obviously for the Instinct lineup, but they needed them to compete in the market. But like Radeon 7, it was basically just stuff that was this close to making it into the trash bin. So, yeah, better to sell it to us. Will AMD bring ray tracing? Absolutely. We know that they will. Consoles. It's really not that hard. It's really kind of strange. A lot of people think that ray tracing is owned by NVIDIA. Ray tracing is part of DirectX 12. RTX is GameWorks. Just in your mind, when you hear RTX, think GameWorks. It's NVIDIA proprietary software on top of DirectX 12 ray tracing. So, yes, any features that require NVIDIA-specific tools, those aren't going to work on AMD. But everything that can work within DirectX 12 ray tracing absolutely will. And almost all games moving forward are going to be using just the stock standard Vulkan and DirectX 12 implementations because then it'll work on both cards. RTX stuff, just like GameWorks, will only be implemented when NVIDIA pays developers a boatload of money to inject their crap into the games. Now, that is going to happen, and that's going to happen on major titles. But as we know, DirectX 12 runs really well on AMD cards. Back in the days of like The Witcher 3, for example, this is a perfect example of this. NVIDIA paid a bunch of money to CD Projekt Red. They pumped in a bunch of GameWorks crap, which I've never turned on, even on NVIDIA cards. But anyways, they put it in there, but that was a DirectX 11 title. And you have to remember back in 2016, I think that came out, 2015, 2016, AMD's DirectX 11 drivers were the worst. They were really bad for a very long time. So NVIDIA had that advantage, plus they plunked their junk in there. Now, if you take a look at like an RX 580 compared to a GTX 1060 in The Witcher 3, it will actually win. AMD actually overcame their limitations on DirectX 11 through driver optimizations, but it took them a long time to get there. But this time around, with DirectX 12 and Vulkan, we know AMD kills it. So I don't really think there's going to be too much of an advantage for them there. let's see. AMD is at a huge advantage with Zen 2 and RDNA 2 being next-gen consoles. Absolutely. They get baked-in optimization. So, for example, Cyberpunk 2077 has to run well on base PS4 and base Xbox One. It has to run at least like 900p 30 on a base Xbox One. So they're going to need to optimize every last little bit of that to squeeze out enough performance to make that happen. So yeah, everything's going to be designed with that in mind, and AMD is going to have that moving forward. This is why pretty much every DirectX 12 and Vulkan game that's come out, besides the first ones where it was just like tacked on, have run well on AMD cards. That's why Turing really needed to happen, because the Pascal cards really aren't that good in DX12 or Vulkan, not comparatively. You'll see a huge performance hit. They're way better in DirectX 11, which when those came out was still the primary API. Moving forward, once next-gen games really get going, DX11's done. It's just gone. We saw the same thing last generation when the Xbox One and PS4 came out. The DirectX 9 before that was the standard. That's what almost every game used or had a version of it. And then they'd tack on DirectX 11 features. But once next gen showed up, everything was DX 11. Next gen, it's all going to be DX 12 or Vulkan. So yeah, AMD doesn't really have to worry too much about that, I don't think anyway. Let's see, Batman Arkham Knight, GameWorks, fully enabled, needs more GPU than was out at the time. Yeah, GameWorks isn't well optimized, especially on the DX11 games. It just chewed up so many resources. I mean, the effects are barely noticeable. I just, by default, turn them all off, even if I have an NVIDIA card, because it will hurt NVIDIA cards' performance pretty bad as well. But obviously, it hurts the AMD cards more. We just haven't seen this happen since DX12 and Vulkan have kind of taken over for the main AAA titles. RTX is NVIDIA's version of that, and until the RDNA 2 cards come out, we won't see the one-to-one comparison. But all games will obviously be optimized for AMD first, and then they'll throw NVIDIA crap on top later if they're paid to do so. Why does no one acknowledge that DLSS is incredibly proprietary? Requires a ton of work, both the game and devs themselves. DLSS is impressive, but it's GameWorks. DLSS, it actually just needs hooks in the game code, from what I understand, so it's not that hard to implement. NVIDIA basically does all the work, and the developers just have to make sure it has a certain line of code in there. So it's really not that hard to implement, but NVIDIA's got to do all the trainings, so that's a little tough. All right, Marty Rogers, thank you for the 10 spot. It really helps me out. Okay, let's see. Do you think AMD will come out with a 24 or 32 gig variant of a consumer card to combat the incoming NVIDIA 16 gigabyte model? All right, well, let's put on our speculation hat, because this is fun, and that's what we do on Saturdays. This is all speculation and having fun. Okay, so to compete with the 3080 and 3090, AMD will likely need a 384-bit memory bus, since they're likely not using HBM. Now, they could use HBM, and then that solves the problem. But since most people are saying that's not going to happen, they need the 384-bit bus, which means that, yes, they could absolutely have a 24-gigabyte variant, no problem, to compete directly with the 3090. More than likely, if it is faster than the 3090, it'll be priced very, very close to that, because it'll look like a premium product. However, it would make sense for them to have a 12-gigabyte version competing against the 3080 right now. So, yes, I do believe that we will see double VRAM versions, because standard GDDR6, they do make 2-gigabyte chips right now. And they're not using like fancy G6X or any of that nonsense, which is a real problem for NVIDIA. The reason why they can't do a 20-gigabyte card now is because they'd have to put 21-gigabyte chips on there, and that costs a lot of money. They want to wait until they have 2-gigabyte G6X modules to save money and still give you that 20 gigabytes. They'll do it if they have to, to be competitive, but they're going to get away from using 20 chips and 24 chips on the 3090s as quickly as they possibly can. So yeah, expect 12 and 24 gigabytes, assuming that they use 384-bit bus, which if they're using 80 CUs, they're going to need. If for some reason they use 512-bit, that seems highly unlikely at this point, But if they went that route, then yeah, we'd see 16. I don't know if we'd see 32 though. All right, 5700 XT times 2 plus 10%. Well, I don't know if it'd have the plus 10%. I'd say 2 times scaling. Like I said, you have twice the CUs. That's not going to get you twice the performance. But let's say you have a 20% clock speed increase, and let's say a 10% IPC increase. Yeah, I mean, that'll probably make it a level scale. But you're right, it might have a little extra on top. We'll know soon. We'll know this month. That's the really exciting part. We're going to know here very, very soon. All right, let's see. Is there a certain date where Zen 3 will release? Well, it'll be announced on October 8th. I'll be doing a live stream, so if you're not subscribed, please do so. Which, by the way, guys, if you like these type of videos, please smash that like button. It tells YouTube that I'm doing a good job, and then they don't nerf my videos, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, so we'll be doing the live stream. We'll probably find out then. Typically, the launch will be a few weeks thereafter. I would assume it's going to be before the holiday season. Everybody wants their products out before Black Friday, of course, because, well, that's when everybody buys things. So I would figure before Black Friday for sure. So that's late November. So I'd say probably the end of October to mid-November is probably a realistic time frame. All right. Call me spoiled, but I want to get 4K 60. Well, see, that's the whole reason why I'm really interested in this whole machine learning thing. So either DirectML or DLSS or whatever. I want to see it implemented across the board because then 4K 60 is no longer an issue. Like anything can then do 4K. If you can do 1080p 60, you can then do 4K 60. So it's coming. It's going to be coming to mainstream cards. Maybe not this generation, but definitely by next generation. 4K 60 won't be a problem. 8K is basically like running 4K now. So a card that can do 4K today should be able to do 8K with the AI upscaling. So even 8K is not really going to be a problem here in the not too distant future. This sucks having... I'm not sure what kind of surgery that is there, Harry Patch, but... well, I mean, if you could watch on your phone or something, you know, you could do that or you can watch it later. You'll get all the news, man. Everybody's going to be talking about it. I'll have to make videos after it. Zen 3 is going to be the only thing we all talk about until, RDNA 2. This might also be the reason why they pushed back the 3070 because they're like, nobody's going to talk about our card. Everybody's going to be talking about Zen 3 destroying Intel. I got to come up with some pretty interesting thumbnails. Maybe something with some nuclear explosions at Intel's headquarters, or maybe like something with my baby crying and having like a Intel exec t-shirt on or something. I don't know, but those guys are really going to be unhappy come October 8th. Let's see. How AMD going to do with drivers for RDNA 2? Hopefully well. I mean, they could completely screw it up. We don't really know, but... they should learn from NVIDIA's mistakes. 4K 30 on 2080 with DLSS and RT on. Yeah, I mean, but if you turn the RT off, you can get 4K 60. So you get to kind of pick and choose. 4K is not really going to be that hard to do. Like I said, once we have machine learning and it's standardized and it's in all the games, next-gen consoles are really going to take advantage of that. Think about it. How are they going to really push 4K 120? They're not natively. I mean, hell, nothing's really going to be pushing that. So they're going to have to cheat. And by cheating, they're going to have to use AI upscaling. It's the best way to do it. Checkerboard rendering, we know that has like artifacts and whatnot. But machine learning seems to work fine. So that's definitely going to be implemented in most games moving forward. Mainly for the consoles, so they can do 4K 60 and 4K 120. All right, Five Finger John, thank you for the 5-spot, buddy. Would a 3070 or super variant be good for 1440p 144? Yeah, I mean, it's basically going to be a 2080 Ti. 8 gigabytes of RAM. Here's the thing. If you upgrade every generation, then it's not going to be a problem. By the time the next generation comes out, you'll just get, a card with more memory. But if you're somebody who buys a card and keeps it for, let's say, 2 or even 3 basically until it's no longer good, then you might want to wait for the 16 gigabyte version, which will likely be a 3070 Ti. My guess is it's going to be $599, and it's going to be like 10 to 15% faster than the 3070 and 10 to 15% slower than the 3080. So, yeah, but it'll crush 1440p 144. Absolutely. Let's see. Consoles are likely 4K 60, 4K 30 with ray tracing. Like I said, if they get the machine learning going, they could push higher. Obviously, 4K 60 is going to be the target across the board, but there's going to be games like Doom and, really fast-paced games that are going to want to push that 120. So they might just say screw ray tracing if that's too expensive, or they'll just use it in very small areas where it doesn't take up a lot of processing power. Game developers are going to get really, really smart. I mean, if you look at the early PS4 and Xbox One generation games and look at the games that they're producing today, like Cyberpunk, for example, they got really smart. It's not like the hardware changed. Those consoles didn't get any faster. They just figured out better ways of doing things. To me, the biggest thing that they figured out this generation was the temporal anti-aliasing. That saved them a ton of resources because MSAA was way too expensive and honestly looks worse, in my opinion. And then you had FXAA, which was garbage. It basically just blurred the image. TAA kind of blurs the image a little bit, but it's classier and it looks good. But that, features like that come out later on in the generation, so they can do a lot of really cool stuff. Just get a CRT. Already got one. I need to get a really good PC monitor CRT. They're really hard to find. Even if I wanted to spend $2,000 or $3,000 on one, which some of them cost $2,000 or $3,000, they'll cost more than an LG OLED because there's like 3 of them available on the planet. So even if I wanted to, I'd have to drive 20 hours to go get it. And I'm not spending a whole bunch of money and driving. I'm just not going to do that. But I would love to get one of those. I think it's 2560 by 1600 Sony CRT monitors. I would use that as my primary monitor and never switch it. But that's just me. I'm waiting on a 4K monitor until higher refresh rate becomes more common. Yeah, that makes sense. Happy with 1440p 144. Yeah, I wouldn't really jump to 4K until 4K 120 standard. Should be next year. I thought it was going to be this year, but I think the whole pandemic thing really screwed up manufacturing, and everybody basically just re-released the same stuff that they had last year. I haven't really seen a lot of new panels come out this year, so hopefully next year that'll become a thing. I'm waiting for TVs with HDMI 2.1 to be normalized. I've been waiting forever. I still got a 1080p TV because I'm like, until HDMI 2.1 comes out with VRR, I had no interest in 4K. Oh, Donald Kane with the 30 spot. Thank you so much. All right, let's see. Given the fact that Jensen's still holding a grudge with AMD for turning his offer, to buy AMD, I'm guessing turn down the offer to buy AMD when they're in financial trouble. AMD knows this and not get into a pissing contest to have the top card. Well, I don't think that's really the case anymore. They went after Intel, which at the time, 3 years ago, Intel was much bigger than NVIDIA. And they had no problem raining on their parade. So going after NVIDIA, I don't think that they're going to go as hard. I don't think that they ever expect to take over the GPU market where AMD's should be. Let's put it this way. I can't say what they're actually doing. I don't work there. But what they should be doing is going after the APU market, which they have all the technology. Imagine a Series X APU in a laptop or a small low-profile PC. That's going to be huge because for most people, that's all the horsepower that they're going to need from a PC. So that's where I really think that AMD is going to have their advantage and where they really want to take their technology. Now, just going after the top end of the market, that's kind of like the icing on the cake. And if they have the technology to do it and they have people that are willing to buy them, I don't see why they wouldn't. So we'll know here soon enough. If, they only come out with a 60 CU unit or whatever, then we know, yes, definitely they really don't have that big of an interest at the tippity top, but they're going to go after basically the sub $1,000 market, which is okay because I believe most of you guys are not going to spend more than $1,000 on a graphics card. Some of you might, but the vast majority of you probably aren't going to do that. So as long as AMD can compete in that range, I think that's just fine. But like I said, they might just be like, we're doing real good. We got the tech. NVIDIA really screwed up by going with Samsung 8 nanometer. Maybe it's time for us to, really kick it into high gear. Like I said, we'll find out here soon enough. Minimum FPS matters. Yes. I would rather have 60 FPS with no dips and no drops than 120 FPS that's like going down to like 40 and bouncing all over the place. Yeah, I like consistent frame rate over high frame rate. So it's got to be over about 50 FPS though. Once you get into that 40 range, that kind of bothers me. But consistent 60 to me is pretty good in most games. First-person shooters, I'm a little bit more tolerant of fluctuations in frame rate because, well, it's more beneficial with the high frames. I will 100% spend more than 1,000. Hey, well, social gamer, that's your choice, dude. I mean, there are people that do that. But the vast majority of people are not going to be spending that kind of money. 1,000 is the limit for Stephen Hart. See, everybody has their limits. For me, it's like $200 or $300. I really don't care, honestly. For me, all my games run just fine. I basically play 360 era games on back. Newer games just kind of suck, in my opinion. I haven't really seen too many that are really worth it. Doom 2016 was good. Doom Eternal was good. But most newer games are just bad. I'd rather play Dragon Age Origins than whatever the new Dragon Age is going to be. You kind of see where I'm going. So for me, I can basically run 4K on all the games that I play with like a $150 graphics card. So I'm pretty happy with that. But, if something comes out and is like a really like pristine deal, like if they come out with, let's say 10 to 15% faster than the 3070 at like $399 with 16 gigs of RAM, oof, that'd be pretty tempting right there. I could probably stretch my budget a little bit. Zen 3 hype. I don't think there's enough hype for this. I did videos a few months ago trying to get everybody hyped up. I'm like, you guys don't understand how crazy Zen 3 is going to be. First off, Intel is no longer an option for anything at all. So this is basically the beginning of the end of Intel for sure. And yeah, for me, that single thread IPC, that is huge. I do like RPCS3 emulation. You need basically 12 threads is fine. You don't really need an 8-core. But you need as fast a single core processor that you can because each thread that it uses are highly taxed. And personally, I'd like to play a lot of PS3 games at 60 FPS instead of their stock 30. And to do that, I need way more CPU horsepower. Also for encoding, like I rip a lot of Blu-rays, man, that takes a long time. So getting something with some crazy CPU horsepower, that would really help me out. So I'm very excited myself. I'm thinking an 8-core, 16-thread. Core count-wise, for me, I think that covers all my bases. I don't really think I need more than that. But yeah, so I'm really interested, and hopefully they're reasonably priced. That's the thing. Now that they're beating Intel at everything, AMD can pretty much charge whatever the hell they want. That's the part that I'm scared about. Because if they wanted to, they can keep Zen 2 on the market as the budget version. But if you want to spend more, you can always get the Zen 3 version. Hopefully they don't do that. That would kill a lot of the goodwill that they've, built up over the past few years with Ryzen. So we'll see. We'll know in just a couple of days. So we don't have to wait too long on that one. Why are you sitting at the left side of your screen? This is just the way that I have it set up. If I wanted to put, like little graphics and stuff over here. If you want, I could always change it. But I like having that little bit of space over here. So if I wanted to display something, you could see me and it as well. This video, I don't really have anything to show. So not at this time. Let's see here. Roughly have $4,200 for a new PC. Hey man, hopefully that PC is making you a lot of money or you're going to be using the hell out of it. But, as long as it's in your budget, go for it. See, that's the thing. For me, I'm never going to spend that because there's a lot of other things that I would invest that kind of money into and maybe spend $1,000 on a PC. I try to keep it under $800. $800 or less for a PC. That's kind of my jam. that's why I don't really have a problem using older stuff. Now, I do like to buy new technology and test them out for you guys here on the channel. So definitely like doing that. And then usually what I'll do is I'll just sell them off after I get all the numbers and, recover my money that way. It said when you have a 144 FPS monitor to downgrade to 4K, 30 to 50 FPS gaming. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make that much sense to me either. The higher refresh is a little bit better than the resolution. I honestly, especially in like the living room, I have a hard time telling the difference. I don't have a 4K TV myself, but other people's, like, I can't really tell the difference from normal sitting distance between 1080p and 4K. You're just so far away. In my living room, you're probably about 15 feet away from the television. It's just really hard to tell the difference, honestly. So I can get away real cheap by just running 1080 up there. And even if I had a 4K TV, most 4K TVs can do like 1080p or 1440p, 120. So you may actually have a 4K TV that can do high refresh. And honestly, I think that's the better option. My friend's still using i3 4th gen. That's a little tough. That's a bit tough. For a little while there, I was using a i5 4690, and it worked. I mean, it did day-to-day stuff okay, but yeah, I mean, going from it's just too long in the tooth nowadays. Really, anything lower than like a 6-core 12-thread doesn't make a whole lot of sense, considering how cheap they are, honestly. Let's see. 800 gets you a good mid-high-end PC, which is enough for the majority of people. Exactly. Typically, what I'll spend more money on is like storage or power supply. I don't really spend a lot on cases because even cheap cases do the trick real well. But, parts that last for basically ever, those are what I'll usually invest heavily in. Like I got a 2 terabyte NVMe, cost a pretty good amount of money. But, 2 terabytes is going to be plenty for a very long time. So that's usually where I put my money into. CPUs and GPUs, not really necessary unless I have a specific need. Like, I do need a really fast 8-core CPU. So I'll probably jump on the Zen 3 train because I have a specific use case for it. But in terms of GPU horsepower, I personally don't need it. So I'm actually pretty good with where I'm at. So unless somebody wants me to do like a video or something, or, if a company wants to sample me, that'd be fine. But honestly, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at unless, there's a really good deal that happens to come out where I'm like, well, I just can't pass that up. That's just a hell of a deal. Or if, let's say AMD does something really, really good, like the thing that I mentioned before, like a 399 16 gig 2080 Ti, that to reinforce that is the way to do things, I might go out and buy that because that's obviously a huge step forward for the market. All right, let's see. 4K 50, while annoying, use res scaling or custom res. Okay. Intel 2600 Smash, AMD 260 in gaming also. Are you talking about like 2600, like the i7? And then, I gotcha. So an AMD RX 260 with an i7 2600. Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty good combo. You can actually still use it here today. Obviously, you'd be playing low, but probably still work. And we got Ray. He also prefers CPU horsepower over GPU. I mean, it just comes down to use case. There's a lot of people out there wanting to run like really crazy, panoramic, like simulator setups. You need a buttload of GPU horsepower to do that. I'm not personally doing that. So everybody's going to have different use cases for these things. This is why there's not just like 1 or 2 GPUs launched each generation, because everybody's going to need different things. Some people like to build really small profile machines. It's actually one thing that I want to do for the channel. I actually want to build a console-like PC. Basically, if you wanted to build your own next-gen console using like an ITX board and a really small profile case and stuff, I've actually been putting some feelers out there to some vendors, try and see if we can get some people to go ahead and sponsor the video by sending in, you know, like either some of the parts or whatnot. Basically help save me some cash from to do that. But I think that that's really interesting as well. But you can't put in a 320 watt GPU in a like super cram mini ITX case. I've seen some people trying to do it and they're like, hey, it works. You're going to have vents in very inconvenient locations. It's going to have to be open. You can't put it in like a TV cabinet underneath because there's too much heat. The thing will just blow up. So yeah, even really low performance parts actually have a place in certain circumstances. So there's really cool stuff there. Chris, do you prefer Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal? Well, they're two completely different games. That's the really interesting part. Doom Eternal is more like chess, and Doom 2016 is just a power fantasy. Honestly, I prefer the power fantasy, so I'd say Doom 2016. Like, you just go in and just wreck everybody. And Doom Eternal, if, you know, the monsters catch you or you start clipping into a wall or whatever, if you screw up, you die real quick. You can murder everybody pretty fast too, but yeah, I'd say Doom 2016 for me is more fun because it's just more relaxed. You know, Doom Eternal, especially on higher difficulties, you feel like, man, you feel exhausted when you're done playing that one. Donald Kane, another 20 spot. Thank you so much. With Zen 3 moving the L3 off the, excuse me, moving the L3 off the CCX and onto the IO, and just a small bump is to CPU speeds. I see 5800X trading blows with the 10850K. Oh, excuse me. Need to get a drink. Sorry about that. Okay. No. Zen 2 is going to have, or Zen 3 is going to have 15 to 25% higher IPC and clock speeds. If you combine the two, it's supposed to be somewhere in that range. This was told by, I think it was David Huang. No, he's RTG. I forgot who it was. Forrest Norrod. Forrest Norrod basically said that Zen 2, the uplift there, we're going to see a bigger one on Zen 3. And if you throw basically 20%, let's just use kind of a ballpark number, 20% on top of Zen 2, it's way beyond anything Intel can do. Even if you overclock to 5.5 gigahertz, it's still not even going to catch up. It could draw 8 times the power, and it's still not going to catch up. So if they can get the 5 gigahertz, which would be, what, about 10% on clocks, then we're definitely talking about the 25%-ish range on single thread. And yeah, there's no way that they're going to be able to catch up with that. Let's see. I wonder how fast that is from a 1600 that I have. Well, you have to understand that Zen 1 is basically Haswell. It's actually a little slower in terms of IPC than Haswell. So basically just take a look at where a 6-core, 12-thread Haswell CPU was, and then kind of compare it to where Intel is, and then throw about 10 to 15% on top of that, and that should give you a pretty good idea where you should be. Need to know, do I need more than a 600-watt power supply, 80 plus gold, for the new AMD cards? I doubt it. I highly doubt AMD is going to really push the power that high. I'd say 300 watt should be their maximum, because whether it's 7NP or 7 nanometer plus, AMD is going to have a massive, absolutely massive advantage over the Samsung 8 nanometer. So they don't need to be anywhere near as power hungry to deliver similar performance. Then there's also the chance that AMD might actually have higher IPC. Remember last time with RDNA 1, they basically tied Turing. So, and Ampere's not a whole lot better than Turing. So AMD could actually have also instruction per cycle lead on top of, you know, having the process performance lead. So at 300 watts, they might actually be able to beat, you know, obviously a 350-ish watt 3090. So yeah, I wouldn't really be too terribly worried about that. Let's see. Okay, nice. For me, then I don't need to upgrade my power supply. Yeah, no, I wouldn't worry about it. 600 watts should be more than enough for the AMD cards. Now, if they want to make like some ultra edition just to really rub it in, let's say the basic one at 250, 280 watts beats the 3090, I suppose that they could come out with like a 320 watt version that's just way higher clocked. Now, I would never buy one of those because then stability really becomes a bit of an issue in my opinion. Why all old news in the title? Well, I'm not going to lie, it's YouTube and I got a clickbait. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm just throwing in stuff there, keywords, trying to get people to the live stream. I do these every week, and it's just an open chat, open forum. But yeah, YouTube really has been fighting against me here recently, so I have to do whatever I have to do to get eyeballs on the channel. So yeah, I just threw in basically all the buzzwords that I could think of. All right, John, greetings from the Netherlands. Got a lot of you guys over there in the Netherlands. You guys are... maybe I should move there. I've been thinking about it. Sweden did everything good with this whole COVID thing. I might end up moving there. So, might be your neighbor here soon. All right, let's see. I ran Vega 64's OSEED with a OSEED 1700, Ryzen 1700 on a 600 watt Be Quiet power supply. Yeah. And we know Vega 64s, those chewed power. They just loved it. So, yeah, if he was doing good there, I honestly don't see RDNA 2 chewing more power than let's say, like a Vega Liquid, which is basically what you were doing when you were overclocking. Unless you were undervolting and overclocking, then you did it right. Let's see. We've heard about AMD having liquid-cooled models. I mean, which would make sense if they went nuts with it. So I would guess that would be the absolute top end. Yeah, I mean, they absolutely could do that. They have done that. And if they do like a 320, 350 watt model, that's the smart way for them to go. Hank Van Het Internet. Greetings, fellow Netherlands people. Thank you for the 2 spot. Yeah, there's quite a lot of you guys out there. I'm pretty popular. Like I said, I'll probably have to do like a trip or something. Go visit with you guys or something. All right. Hello from the UK. Maybe I'll do a European tour, but yeah, once this whole pandemic thing's over with, then we'll start doing that. I really want to go visit Ireland, and what's funny is Paul's in Ireland from Not an Apple Fan, and he and I get along real well, so I'm like, that might be a trip here in the future. Go visit him and do in-person live stream or something. All right. Manpower bill is an issue for me. Is Ryzen 3rd Gen going to be more efficient? I think it's going to be equally as efficient as Zen 2. You're just going to get about 20 to 25% more performance. So think like a 3700X 65 watt TDP. Basically just, like I said, just throw about 20% on top. And yeah, I'm hoping it's the same price though. That's the big thing for me. Like I said, performance and power and all of that, AMD's been doing really, really well on the Ryzen side for sure. So I'm not too concerned about that. It's really going to be, since they're going to have such a massive lead over Intel, are they going to start price gouging really bad? They started doing it a little bit with Zen 2, but it wasn't too bad. It was acceptable. Let's see. What do you mean by 1050 Ti price range? I'm not really sure what your question means there. Let's see. Add to your European trip, Prague. Yeah, I mean, that'd be pretty cool. If I do it, obviously I'd want to go everywhere, but I got the little one, so. And there's still the pandemic and all the rest of that nonsense, so we'll see what happens here in the next 12 months or so. All right. I bought every part except for CPU and GPU. Can't wait for Big Navi so I can build my new system. Well, hopefully you can. Like I said, it's just a few weeks away, and then you'll have a good idea what's going on. Like I said in my last video, if the performance isn't anything earth-shattering, you could just go out and buy a RTX 3070 the next day, or jump on your local used market, and maybe somebody will be selling, 2070s, 2070 Supers with them upgrading, and then maybe you can get those for like $250, $300. I think a 2070 Super would be pretty good at about $250. I think that'd be a pretty solid deal. All right. Let's see. We are interested in Zen 3, but less hype because we're already happy with Zen 2. Well, I mean, like I said, some people are happy with Zen 2. Me, I want like 5 times the IPC that we have now. If you've ever used a modern emulator like CMU or, like I said, RPCS 3 or doing encoding, you know, when it pops up and does that shader cache thing, I want the CPU so fast that it'll be done instantly. No more shader caching, no more none of that. It's done in real time on the fly. So, yeah, for some people, Zen 2 is good enough. For some people, it's not even close. I happen to be in that category. I need low core count. About 8 cores is fine. Don't need any more than that. But I need really, really fast cores, like 2 or 3 times faster than what we have now. So if we can get 20% faster, that's a step in the right direction for me. All right. Let's see, RTX 4080 Ti. I like that name. I live in India where electronics cost a lot. RTX 3080 is $1,100 in India. And I don't know, you guys are so lucky. Yeah, we here in the United States really get lucky with all of this because we get it priced in US dollars, which is typically lower in value than, let's say, like the UK. And then those guys, obviously they have VAT over there, which adds to it, but they typically pay almost the same amount that we do, and their money's worth like 1.2, 1.3 times ours. It's, yeah, we get super lucky here in the States. Why? It's probably because we're the largest consumer base for these. This is where all the sales come from, or a good portion of them. So they want to make sure that this looks good because that keeps the investors happy. And then in the markets, the smaller markets, you guys, unfortunately, you really get hosed. I guess you could try to get more people to buy parts over there in India. And yeah, then prices would go down. But you have way more people there than us. But when it comes to free capital here in the United States overall, just happen to be a little bit more wealthy. So there's more people that blow money on this kind of stuff. So that's really the reason there. Now, from shipping standpoint, you know, you're over there in Asia, it should be a lot cheaper to ship it from Taiwan or wherever. So I don't know. I do not run one of these companies, so I don't know the exact logistics. All right. Coming, let's see. We got thing we get screwed by the top of my head. Okay. Not really sure what you're trying to say there. Apparently, RDNA 1 had some hardware bugs, so AMD used drivers to patch it, which caused all of the crashing issues. Yeah, I've heard about this. I haven't really seen definitive evidence. Could be true. But yeah, they definitely don't want that to happen this time with RDNA 2. It's obviously in the consoles. RDNA 1 was, like I said, supposed to be in the PS5. And that might be the reason why they opted not to launch last year with the PS5 and waited to this year with RDNA 2. So who knows? It's way more expensive too in Indonesia. Yeah, I mean, most of the smaller, I mean, India is a huge country, but smaller countries especially, South American countries, yeah, a lot of these guys just screw you over. It sucks. I don't know why. I really don't. Let's see. If Ampere was 7 nanometer, imagine. Well, like I said, if they need a faster card, they can't do any better on 8 nanometer than the 3090. So if they do need to do better, they will have a 7 nanometer card. Other than CU count, there's nothing on Navi 23, probably releasing next quarter. Yeah, Navi 22, I hope comes out now. If there's an 80 CU unit, we're going to need, something smaller. 40 CU unit would be great, because obviously they can cut down the 80 down to like 60, and that'd be fine, and everywhere in between. But yeah, something around that 40 CU unit mark would be much more budget friendly for this holiday season. But yeah, the smaller cards, the GA106 dies and that stuff, I expect those would be at CES early in January. I don't think those are coming before the holidays. Even if 7 nanometer TSMC is double the price, you get more yields with the smaller node. I think what you're saying is because the dies are smaller, you get more chips out of it. Yes, that's true. So it's not quite double the cost. Like, it doesn't translate 1-to-1. Might be 1.6, 1.7 times the cost. But even still, I mean, the die doesn't cost that much. I mean, Jim's done a bunch of videos on it. I've done a bunch of videos on it. We've literally showed you guys they only cost, I don't know, $50, $100, somewhere in there. The biggest die in the world only costs like $80 to $100 to build. So that's not really where the cost comes in, honestly. The cost really comes in on the R&D side of things. And just to make the masks to produce the chips at TSMC or wherever, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars right there. So you have to recover that cost right up front. And NVIDIA, you know they're going to sell product. And AMD, this is the reason why people were telling me AMD's not going to do like this big mega Navi, is they didn't want to invest all that money because they didn't think that they were going to sell. And that to me made a lot of sense. If AMD was just trying to play it safe and not invest a lot of money up front, I could kind of get that. But it seems likely that there is going to be a big one now. So that was one of the reasons why I did kind of believe that, was just them trying to play it safe. Do you think AMD would release budget cards to get a leg up on NVIDIA in the budget GPU market? I mean, they will. They're just not going to come out this year. They'll be, like I said, likely announced early next year. Should you wait for DDR5 CPU or go with Ryzen 5000? I'm on a 6700K. Yeah, that's kind of a tough one. Because DDR5 should be on the next generation stuff. Personally, I don't think it's going to matter for next generation of games. I think DDR3 is still good for games today, if that's your primary thing. So DDR4 should be good throughout this generation. I think you'd be all right if you upgraded. Now, if you needed it for memory-intensive tasks, yeah, that's something else, and you need to really look into that. All right, Stephen Hart, another 5-spot. Thank you. Thoughts Infinity Cache. Wait, let me read through this here real quick. All right, so thoughts Infinity Cache and only having a 256-bit bus on the top card. Okay, yeah, I gotcha. On the surface, doesn't look good. Infinity Cache, good or not? Honestly, until I see like the white papers on it, I can't say anything about that. Honestly, I don't even think that's going to happen. More than likely, the top card's not going to have a 256-bit bus. It's more likely going to have a 384-bit bus. The cache will likely be AMD's way of catching up with NVIDIA's memory technologies. Like I said, NVIDIA's had a massive lead there for a very long time, for about 10 years. Like, if you look at the 7970 versus the GTX 680, like we can go all the way back then. I think that's 2012. We had a 384-bit bus card from AMD competing with a 256-bit bus card from NVIDIA. And then you fast forward a little bit, you had 512-bit compared to 384-bit. And this has always been a problem for AMD. I don't think they're going to be able to compete with NVIDIA's 384-bit cards with a 256-bit bus. I just can't see that massive delta being shifted. More likely, they can use that technology to get a leg up on NVIDIA. So using 384 versus 384, they might be equal there. But NVIDIA is using the G6X. AMD will be using just standard GDDR6X or GDDR6, which saves them money, and that's why they can do more RAM because you have the 2 gig chips. So that extra cache will likely make up that difference in the memory speed. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's basically how it's going to pan out, to be honest with you. Angelo Lopez, thank you for the 5-spot. With the 5700 XT, I can play all games I want at 1440p above 60 FPS. Well, except for Control. Well, you know, some games just run like crap. It's just the way it is. Should I buy Navi when it comes out? What do you think? Honestly, I don't think you're really going to need to be honest with you. 5700 XT, you said you're gaming at 1440p. As long as like really demanding games, you're okay with either sacrificing a little bit of visual fidelity or, like I said, sticking with like 60 FPS, and then, you know, easier to run games like Doom or whatever. Those are what you run at high FPS. You should be fine until the next generation, which, let's be honest, it'll probably be about 2 years from now. All right. Chris, do you think the 2070 Super will hold well until the 4000 series? I think so. Just like the 5700 XT, I'm pretty sure that 2070 Super, they're going to hold up pretty good. Yeah, I wouldn't really upgrade this generation. We're getting to that point where the increases each generation just aren't that vast. So if you get like a mid-range-ish card, you're probably going to be good for at least 2 generations. Now, you can upgrade if you want to. If you're just like, hey, I just want the new thing, you know, go for it. Or if you can get somebody to give you most of your value back on your current card, then you definitely want to take advantage of that. But otherwise, if you don't feel like dealing with any of that, you should be fine. Alrighty, let's see. Yeah, so I agree with Arjun. If you have a 5700 XT, wait for RDNA 3. I probably wouldn't stretch it to 4, but all right, great video. Congrats on being a dad. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the really most interesting thing about my life right now. All this craziness in the tech world is like, yeah, I kind of expected a lot of this to happen. Yeah, I was not ready to be a dad. I mean, I was ready, but like I didn't know how ready I was. Like, I really like it. I'm really enjoying being a dad. Let's see. 5700 XT with a 2-tier GPU jump is a RX 570 or a 1050 Ti now. It'll work. Yeah, it's a good card. I'm actually thinking about picking one up when they're like stupid cheap, like under $200, just because. I just want to mess with one. I had to switch to this stream because of those damn politics on the Minecraft stream. Yeah, I can go into politics, but I prefer not to. To me, this is my oasis. Hanging out with you guys. This is my relaxed time. You know, the world is always present, but I can shut it out when I'm hanging out with you guys. So, yeah, I don't want to be dealing with none of that with you. I tried it a little bit on the channel when things get really stupid. You know, only if major things happen. But yeah, I want no politics to be a part of this. This is fun time. All right. Hey, Patch Boy, kids are great. But the best thing about kids is making them. Yeah, that's true. Well, we got to make at least one more. My wife wants a boy and a girl. Got a boy. I told her I'm doing 2. No more than 2. So I'm hoping she gets what she wants because I'm definitely going to get what I want. Just going to put it that way. What are you expecting from ray tracing performance in RDNA 2? This is really the interesting thing because I've really flip-flopped on this one internally. We haven't really gotten a whole lot of new information. The biggest thing is the fact that consoles are pushing 4K 120 with ray tracing. I'm betting there's some sort of AI upscaling going on there, which is fine. I don't care. AI upscaling to me is the future. Native resolution's dead in my opinion. But so if that's even possible on a PS5 with 36 CUs, to me that's saying that AMD could actually have the vastly superior ray tracing. It is possible because think of it this way. NVIDIA has dedicated RT cores, right? If AMD does all of the ray tracing on their shaders, or possibly able to do it on their shaders, let's say there's a little part in there, or their shaders can just do them, they're going to have infinitely more cores doing ray tracing than NVIDIA. Or potentially, depending on how demanding the scene is. So, depending on how this all shakes out, they could be vastly superior. There's no real way to know until we get the cards, though. What processor are you running, and are you running dual channel memory? Oh, you're talking to somebody else. It's like, yes, if you're not running dual channel or more memory, you're doing it wrong. Let's see here. I said 2 kids, had a girl, and twin sons. Yeah, that could happen too, you know. But that's cool. You know, if twins happen to show up, I'd be pretty all right with that. That's what I wanted to happen this time, because then I'm done. You know, just get 1 and 1 and just raise them all at the same time and then be done. I'm definitely a type of guy that likes to just jump in and knock it out. Alrighty, guys. So we're getting to about an hour and 10 minutes. We'll go for about 20 more minutes. So get your questions in here, and then, yeah, I'm going to go play with my kid. 37, excuse me, 3700X, 32 gigs of 3200. Okay, you guys are talking in there. If you're going to be talking to each other, please, like, at the person you're talking to. So this way I know not to read that one. Let's see. All right. So we had this huge push to get to 4K. Now we're there. Now everyone is pushing upscaling. Make up your mind, guys. Which is it, 4K or fake 4K? Native resolution's dead. I'm telling you. Forget it. It's done. It's in its last days. Before this next generation is over, nobody will be running native resolution because AI can actually run your native resolution better than native. And that's the truth. Nothing's going to be better than an AI upscaled image here in the near future. All right, I play open world sims. Okay, well, that's cool. Rocky. Hi, by the way. So, hello. Let's see. Notice NVIDIA's new strategy this generation, pushing silicon to clock speed limits. Yes, because they chose the wrong process. Going all out on performance, not worrying about power consumption or OC headroom. They had to. Yeah, I mean, that's very telling to me. It could be two things. One, they already know what AMD is bringing, and they had to really step up their game. Number two is they don't have a clue what AMD's doing, but they know that everybody hated Turing, and they needed another Pascal. So to get the 3080 to the performance level where it needed to be on Samsung's 8 nanometer, they had to say, well, to hell with power consumption and all of that, and they pushed it to its maximum. So it's one of the two, or it could be both. But I guarantee you, at least one of those two were the reasons why they did what they did. So fake 4K it is then. Yes, fake 4K, fake 8K, fake 1080p, fake everything. What's really interesting is imagine a RTX 2080 Ti running a game at 540p. Think of all the crazy ray tracing that you can do there, and then just upscaling it to like 1080p or wherever. That's really what's gonna happen. I mean, that's the way we're moving. Now, going that low in resolution doesn't work so good, at least not with modern AI technology, because I have an NVIDIA Shield TV, which will automatically upscale lower resolution stuff on the fly. Doesn't work super good with like old DVDs, the old 480p DVD quality. But anything 720p or higher, it looks damn good, and it does a really good job. So that's why I can say definitively that AI and the faking is going to be the future. Let's see here. How much longer do you believe 16 gigs of RAM will be viable through the next generation? If we're just talking about gaming, 16 gigs will be good until PS6. Let's see. I'm building PC right after Zen 3, considering 32 gigs of RAM. It depends on what you're doing. Like for me, I'm thinking about jumping up to 32 gigs. The videos that I started doing, I started recording on my camera. I started using 4K, so the extra RAM would come in handy for that. Reason why I did that is because to make the videos more visually interesting, if you guys notice, I've been like zooming in and out when I do my cuts. The views on the videos have been going up, so that's why I've been doing that. It doesn't look as good if I do 1080p, because if you zoom in on 1080p, it doesn't look as good. So I've been recording in 4K. So if you have a need for more than 16 gigabytes of RAM, go for it. But yeah, if you're just going to be gaming primarily, you don't really need to worry too much about it. AMD's paper launch. I hope that they don't do a paper launch. That would really hurt them right now. What performance level do you think is coming to the 275, 350 price point this generation? Okay, so I'm pretty sure the 299 mark is going to be the 3060. That's just my guess. Just looking at where NVIDIA is right now. And performance-wise, I would expect that to be 2070 Super or maybe 2080. Somewhere in there. So yeah, so that's kind of what we should expect. I'd expect AMD to undercut that by about $50. So the $250 range to $270, we'll probably get, like I said, like 2070 Super-ish level performance. So that's pretty darn good. I mean, it's not a huge decrease in price, but it's about a what, 75% off? It's not too bad. Let's see here. What performance level? Okay, I already got you on that one. I just saw your second one where you're like, I'm not trying to spam, so I'm like, oh, let me make sure I read the thing then. Okay. What about DLSS for games? Let's see. Let's stop that from moving. What about DLSS for games that can get really high FOV, where there are very tiny objects on screens? Well, that works just fine. I mean, if you haven't really looked at how the technology works, you might be like, that's impossible. The AI is so smart. It's like if you look at something real fast and just like glance at something and then look away. In your mind's eye, your mind will reconstruct the entire image. It may not be 100% accurate, but it's accurate enough that you're like, oh yeah, that's what the thing looked like. And then when you look back at it, you go, yeah, that's what it looks like. That's basically what AI does. It just makes shit up, but it's right like 99% of the time. So that's why they can get away with it, because you playing the game, you're not going to, unless you're Digital Foundry or something and you're scrutinizing each individual frame, it's not going to make that big of a difference to you. Okay. Just bought 32 gigs of memory to bling out all 4 slots. Yeah, you can do that too. Steve from Hardware Unboxed found that you get like a minuscule, but a performance increase by doing that. So there you go. So yeah, if you go with 16 gigs now, you can just get another 16 gigs later, as long as you have 4 slots. All right. Let's see. So we got NBW Doughboy, and that's pretty good. I have a 970. Been good since 2016. Technically, that card's been good since 2014. I'm assuming you got one in 2016, though. But I'm on a 4K monitor now, playing games at 1440p. Need a good 1440p, 90 to 100 FPS, medium high. Yeah, so yeah, somewhere in that range, 2070 super-ish level performance, 5700 XT performance. Yeah, that'll do you just fine. All right. 250 to 300 should be the new 2070. Yep. 3060 Ti. 3060 Ti, I'm betting, is going to be $399. It's a 104 die. It's going to have the 8 gigs of RAM, 256-bit memory bus. It's basically just cut down 3070, but it makes sense that that's going to be $399 and then $299 for the 3060, which will be a GA 106 die. I suddenly feel the need to buy another 16 gigabytes of RAM. Hey, go for it. I got Amazon links in the description below. You can pick up your stuff right there. And it helps me out. Doesn't cost you an extra penny. Are Bitcoin miners buying RTX 3000 series? I don't think so. Everything that I've seen shows, yes, it's good at it, but it draws so much power that it's really not. So I don't think that's going to be too big of an issue. Whoever bought the 1080 Ti got the best deal ever in gaming. Yeah, pretty much. 8800 GTX was right there. The Radeon 9700 Pro. Those are all cards that just lasted for way longer than they ever had a right to. But they were all disruptive to a certain degree. The 1080 Ti was way too fast. That's why I did that video, and it happens to be the best video on the channel because a lot of people apparently agree. It was way too good, especially at that $699 price point, which set expectations way too high. But then they came out with Turing, which was so bad. Even if the 1080 Ti didn't exist, it was still really bad. So, yeah, they kind of killed themselves with the 1080 Ti. But I think it's because NVIDIA bought the hype on Vega. AMD was really pushing the Vega hype hard. So I think they said, okay, if you're going to be that good, we're going to go ahead and beat whatever you got. And they definitely did. All right. Switch from gaming 4K 60 to 1080p 240. Best decision in my gaming life. So much smoother, fast-paced games where you aren't staring at every blade of grass. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you do. Like, for example, I mostly game in my living room. I don't really like gaming at a desk anymore. I have recliners, man. It's way more comfortable. So for me, 60 FPS gaming for the most part is fine up there. It's the input lag that really gets me. So like Doom 2016 at 60 FPS, it's just the input lag is too high. 120 FPS, that's pretty much gone. Like, it's fine. So certain games I have to run at high refresh because of the input latency. And that's something I think next-gen consoles, they're both trying to take care of with like low lag stuff. I know NVIDIA obviously is, and AMD's had that for a while. So, but yeah, in a living room, most of the time 60 FPS is fine as long as input latency is okay for me. But yeah, down here, like in front of a monitor, yeah, 120 FPS, much preferred. And then obviously you went for 240, so I'm assuming you're playing some really fast games. All right, let's see. I saved up for a 1080 Ti, but they were never in stock at the time. Yeah, they sold out real quick too. I was ready to buy one, ended up getting a Samsung 60-inch TV instead. Well, there you go. I mean, hopefully the TV still kicking, just like a 1080 Ti probably would still be kicking in your system too. So there you go. Yeah, if you can't do 60 FPS anymore, what you need to do, here's the trick. If you're one of these people that like get addicted to this stuff, the high refresh and whatnot, stop playing games for about a month. Just no games and only watch movies and TV. And those are at 24 FPS. Then when you go back to 60, it's going to look real good. I swear to God, this works. Like, I was really hooked on the high refresh stuff there for a while. Like, it was hard playing games. But yeah, basically just don't do it for a little while and get yourself used to low frame rates. And then you're just fine again. So there is a way to detox from high FPS. All right. On the marketplace, I see MSI GTX 1080 Ti gaming for, looks like 425 lira. Is that a good deal? 1080 Ti performance is basically 2070. So realistically, that's going to be like the $250 to $300 graphics card this generation. So I wouldn't go that route. Who thinks Radeon anti-lag is default on in the consoles? Yeah, definitely. Something like that is definitely going to be in there. Would using a 3080 at 1080p cause stuttering due to CPU bottleneck? It could. You definitely... Here's the thing. You want to run with frame rate caps. You don't want to run completely unlocked because you will get stuttering almost no matter what. You will have some issues. What you want to do is either pick 120, 144, 60, whatever your frame rate target for the game is, set that as the cap and make sure the game, your system can run it at that frame rate or beyond at any given time. So this way you never ever see dips. That's why I talk about like when I like a perfectly smooth experience. I'd rather have that. I lock all my games to 120 on my PC. So even if the computer could run it at like 300 frames per second, screw it, lock it at 120, and that's just fine. In terms of input latency for me, that's perfectly acceptable. I don't have any problems with that. But running with uncapped frame rates is a bad idea because you will get stuttering, yes. I get the same feeling when I play old games for a month and then I play a modern game. All of a sudden, modern games look so much better. Yeah. If you ever feel like, oh man, you start getting that nose lifting up in the air, you start getting that whole highbrow sort of thing going on. Just knock yourself back to reality. Just take a break from it. And like I said, just watching, movies or something really did it for me. I took a break from gaming for like I said, about a month or two. And yeah, the low frame rates from that, you go back to 60 FPS, it's like crazy fast. And it's really interesting how it goes. Input latency, though, like I said, that's always noticeable to me, always has been. And that's the only reason why I really care about high FPS is to get that input latency down, or for shooters. Shooters, high FPS is obviously great. Depends on some games. Some games run better uncapped. I haven't seen a single one that runs better uncapped. You just pick the FPS target that you like and just cap it. All right. I think they're lying how powerful the next generation consoles are. They lied last time. The Scorpio was never near a GTX 1070. And a 1060 could match a lot of what the games could do. No, a GTX 1060 could never match an Xbox One X. I mean, the settings would have to be much lower to get the same resolutions. The hard part is you can't compare like 1-to-1 most of the time because of the dynamic resolution scaling on consoles, which they don't really have on PC. So, but realistically, yeah, they probably got close to 1070 performance on there. You have to realize consoles, they extract every last ounce of power out of there. Your PC, they waste so much power because the games and programs are not designed for your computer. They're designed for computers as a whole. So they do broad strokes that's not designed specifically for your hardware. So those are maximized. Your PC hardware is minimally used. You get the worst of all of it. But you can buy stuff that's so much more powerful that it doesn't really matter. That's the trade-off. Right, so if your CPU taps out at 90 to 110 FPS, cap at 75, 80, yeah, somewhere around there. You don't need to go that crazy, but you know, if you're, let's say 90 is where your system basically caps out at, and it's like, well, we can't really push this game any harder than that. Yeah, just go a little bit below that, 85 or 80 or something. It should be fine. Isn't Xbox One X using GPU on par with RX 590? It's actually using a Polaris GPU that we never got because the Xbox One X has 40 CUs, I believe. I'm pretty sure it does. I'd have to look it up. But it has more CUs than the RX 580 and 590. So it's kind of its own thing. Hey, good old gamer, watch the potato masher in certain games. 1060 was beating the Scorpio. Yeah, well, you're probably talking about certain games with certain settings. Yeah, I'm talking about big picture. The 1060 really isn't that good. RX 580 kicks its ass. So we know that it has something that's faster or about as fast as a 580, 590, somewhere around there. So it's just kind of picking and choosing on that one. I'd rather play 60 FPS 1440 than 1080 144. Depends on the game. Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you on like The Witcher 3. Doesn't need to be any higher than 60 FPS. Pretty much most third-person games, you don't really need higher than 60. But then, like I said, Doom, definitely want higher because that game, it makes sense, especially Doom Eternal where you're moving so fast and you have so much stuff going on. Being able to see all of that data as fast as possible, that does make a difference. Or competitive shooters or whatnot. Imagine your 2080 Ti being fully utilized. Yeah, it'd be crazy. That's why, like, the consoles, they're not as fast as a 2080 Ti, but I guarantee you next-gen consoles will get close in terms of performance, just due to optimization. All right, let's see. RX 5000 series is faster than the Xbox One X. It's faster. Well, I'm assuming you're talking about the 5700 series. It's way faster than the Xbox One X. I don't think playing FPS at 144 FPS will not stop me from playing racing games. 3D platformers at 30. Racing games are also pretty good at like high refresh. All right, we got Blue Boy VAS. Thank you for the 5 spot. RX 580 was 36 CUs, 256-bit bus. The Xbox One X was 40 CUs and 384-bit bus. Yes, I remembered the bus width, but I was pretty sure it had 40 and it was 36. So thank you for clarifying that. So yeah, it was definitely a custom version of Polaris, something that we never got on PC. If it has 40 CUs, you got to figure it's probably, 44? Because they always cut those down due to yields. So I would assume had NVIDIA or AMD come out with a 384-bit 44 CU Polaris, yeah, that would have definitely beat the pants off of the 1070. Just my guess, though. Xbox One X was a hybrid GPU. This Polaris R9 290. Yeah, it's kind of weird. They did something weird with it. Let's see. Will Navi 23 be up to the level of Navi 10 in terms of gaming performance? I don't know. Because Navi 23, the rumors that are out there, I don't believe that. What were they saying? It's supposed to be like 32 CUs, but then they're saying Navi 22 is 40 CUs. No, that's not how that's going to work. If there's a 40 CU unit, they're just going to cut that one down to 32 CUs. So I'm thinking Navi 23 is going to be 24 CUs, somewhere around there. And I don't think that's going to quite match a 40 CU RDNA 1. So I just don't see that happening. Speaking of consoles, is Sony's new PlayStation Plus for PS5 like Xbox Game Pass? I have not seen them come out with a Game Pass competitor, but the PlayStation Plus that they've had forever now really is not. It's like Xbox Live Gold. That's basically what that one was. Since AMD wins the efficiency crown this generation, can they take laptop market share from NVIDIA? I think that's going to be the big one. I think AMD is going to sweep the laptop market real hard because that's all about performance per watt. Obviously, marketing and stuff does play a factor there. And some people are still going to prefer the NVIDIA stuff, but most of the manufacturers of the laptops are going to want to put the fastest graphics card that they can in the smallest possible form factor, and that's all about performance per watt. So yeah, I think they're going to take a lot of the market share there. Well, alrighty, guys, we are at the hour-and-a-half mark. I am starting to lose my voice here, so I do want to appreciate and thank all you guys for joining me and just hanging out with me this Saturday. We'll do it next Saturday, and then the live stream for the Zen 3 event. I believe that's Thursday, the 8th, whenever the 8th is. We will be live streaming starting a half hour before the event happens. I don't know the times off the top of my head right now, but look forward to seeing you guys there for that one. Not sure if I'm going to be doing a lot of videos this week because we are going to be getting the Zen 3 information. I'm almost tempted to just wait and see exactly what happens before putting out videos, but who knows? Something crazy might come up. If you guys missed part of the live stream, you can head over to Patreon. I'm going to have it available for everybody. You can rewatch start to finish from there. But alrighty, guys, I'm going to get on out of here, go play with my kid a little bit and have some fun here today. Hope you do the same. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.